Thank you, Mr. President. I'm coming to the floor to really urge all of my colleagues to stop denying science and to start understanding that GMO ingredients are just as healthy for American consumers as any other ingredient. We all recognize that there are a fair number of consumers, some of we heard from fairly loudly yesterday, who have concerns. And so as we address this issue and as we see the growing interest in knowing more about ingredients in our food, the more we realize that we can't have 50 states and even the potential of some political subdivisions passing different labeling standards. We have to have a unified labeling standard. But I think I've been disturbed over the last couple months as we've debated this issue from the standpoint of a public health issue and not a consumer issue. And so I think it's critically important that we set the record straight on genetically modified ingredients and that we make sure everyone in our country understands the science of what we've been doing over really almost centuries of work in growing more resilient and better yield crops. And we wouldn't be able to do that in America today, or really across the world, without genetics, without actually looking at applying science to the work that we do in agriculture. And so as I've said on this floor many times, North Dakota prides itself in being the top producer of a wide variety of crops, and our diversity is something I am particularly proud of. This includes conventional bred, organic, and genetically modified, or GMO crops. We grow GMO sugar beets, corn, soybeans, and canola. And I'll say that again, and I'll say it proudly. We grow GMO sugar beets, corn, soybeans, and canola. But we also grow non-GMO products, and including many organics. I think that's what makes American agriculture so resistant and resilient, and it makes American agriculture great. GMOs increase and stabilize productivity, and high yields can make a big difference in the prices that we have today. Non-GMO options provide paid premiums to farmers, and there are a group of consumers willing to pay it. That is the diversity that we see in agriculture today. We should be encouraging this innovation and doing what we can to encourage new products, not just for our farmers' benefits, but for the benefit of agricultural biotechnology all across the world and the benefits that that biotechnology provides. After all, when you look at the story of American agriculture, it is one of innovation. Some of our greatest accomplishments as Americans have come from our agricultural research and our innovation, whether it's our land-grant universities, extension services, co-op organizations, federal research investments. Agricultural innovation has helped increase production, preserve resources, and literally save lives. I want to remind everyone about a person that I think is a great American hero. This person is Nobel Peace Prize laureate Norman Borlaug. Borlaug is thought of as the forefather of modern agricultural biotechnology. Because of Borlaug's dedication to innovation and making sure that we can feed a growing world, he is known as the man who saved 1 billion lives. His wheat breeding work created a wheat which didn't bend and break as it grew, enabling increased production and revolutionizing farming in America and really across the world. As he saved countless lives, he sparked the Green Revolution. And that's why we know biotechnology isn't just good for farmers, though it is especially good during price turndowns. It increases and stabilizes yields and fights against crop pests and disease. Agricultural biotechnology is also great for consumers, not just in stabilizing or reducing prices, but it can literally save lives, like the golden rice can. Just last week, as we pride ourselves on this side of saying we need to make decisions based on science, over 100 Nobel laureates wrote to dispute claims involving golden rice and to talk about how important those innovations were to saving populations from blindness and from disease. And so if we really are concerned about science, let's start talking about science and let's start realizing that in no place has there ever been a study that said these ingredients, GMO inputs, are bad for consumers or in any way injure our livelihood. or our health. So the bottom line is this technology is safe, and we have nothing to hide. If anyone has heard me talk about GMOs, I frequently say when people come in to argue with me, I'd give them to my grandchildren. If there's no higher endorsement for any woman, I think being willing to gladly feed your grandchildren GMO foods, and realize that I wish every grandchild throughout the world had access to the quality products that we grow. But I also have said time and time again, the more we fight efforts to provide this transparency, the more we look like we have something to hide. That's why I proudly support the Roberts-Stabenow compromise bill. I don't think GMO labeling is something I'm particularly interested in. It's not something I'm going to look for in my label, but if you want to know, then you should have a right to know. So if consumers want to know that the ingredients in their food, let's tell them. So let's tell the real story of the compromise bill and what that means for consumer information literally across the country. Today in America, there is just one piece of legislation, one state that requires GMO labeling on their package. And that's the state of Vermont. The other states that have enacted this will only implement their bill if 4 or more states actually also adopt the same kind of provision. So what it means is that for all of these other consumers who want to know what's in their ingredients, they're going to have to wait generations or maybe may never have access to that kind of information. The GMO label, if Senate passes bills, what consumers can know about their food and whether their food actually contains genetically modified ingredients will be nationwide. And so instead of those very small group of consumers in Vermont knowing, the entire country will have access to that information. And for people to suggest that that access can't be provided using modern technology is just a fallacy. We all know that the information that we receive about our ingredients, really about, our life, how many times have we turned to ourselves and said, I don't know the answer to that, Google it. It's become almost, kind of knee-jerk for us to get that instant information. This is an opportunity not only with this label and with this kind of packaging to know about genetically modified ingredients. There's a possibility if you want to know about antibiotics in your food, if you want to know about whether it's gluten-free, whether it contains some kind of peanut oil. All of that information can readily be provided to consumers. And if consumers don't have the ability to scan when they're in the grocery store, in most places, especially major grocery store chains, will provide that access. And so we're expanding, in a way that really is unheard of, access to consumer information. And that's why I think all of the arguments that we've been hearing that we somehow are hiding something or that we're trying to keep this in the dark, what we're trying to say is if we're going to have a label, it should be a national label. And that label should provide the information to all the people of our country, or access to that information for all the people of our country. And so I don't want to leave this debate without reiterating once again that what this bill does is for the first time give national access to every consumer in this country a way to find out what are the ingredients in their food, particularly whether their food has been processed or manufactured with genetically modified ingredients. And so for people to suggest that we are not looking at a bill that provides transparency, that label is going to be mandatory, it's going to provide essential information, and it resolves that issue of transparency. But at the bottom line, what we need to do in this country is we need to do a better job educating consumers about what genetically modified ingredients are, about why they're safe, why every agency, including 100 Nobel laureates, have told us we have nothing to fear from genetically modified ingredients. And we need to learn the lesson of Norman Borlaug, the lesson that through technology, through application of good science, we can, in fact, feed a very hungry world. And we ought not to hide from that. We ought to be proud of that. And so I know this debate is not yet over. I know that we will continue to have a debate, certainly among consumer groups, and I am more than willing to engage in that debate and defend what our farmers do, which is provide options to all consumers, whether it's genetically modified organisms, whether it is in fact organic or non-GMO. We're ready to provide that kind of input, but we have to educate on the science, why these products are completely safe. And I think that's really where we have failed. So I urge everyone to support the Stabenow-Roberts compromise. I think that it achieves that label and achieves that access, and it does this. It tells every consumer in the entire country that they will have access to this information instead of one small state of Vermont. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.